Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joél Simone Anthony. I'm also known as the Grave Woman, and if this is your first time here, I ask that you please hit the subscription button as well as the notification bell so that you can be notified each and every time I upload new content. Today I'm going to be asking, how often do you think a deceased person makes sounds like air trapped? Is it true that all deceased have diapers on inside the casket to contain any fluids? I saw some documentary on how fluids can cause a deceased male to have an erection, and women can release fluids as well. What if a deceased is disfigured really bad? How do you let the family see the deceased, or is it a closed casket funeral? Would embalming still be required? I know I wouldn't want to pay for a funeral without seeing them. And this, I actually did write your name down. These are questions from Sugar Mama. Let me attack these questions one by one. How often do you think a deceased person makes sounds like trapped air? The sounds that you're referring to are real. Deceased individuals sometimes release air in the form of, I don't want to say a gas, but like you described it perfectly, through flatulence or farts and through, I don't want to say belching, but just release of air. I've experienced this happen several times, especially on removals. When someone passes away, of course, their body it's just free. That's the best way I can describe it. It's not working against gravity anymore. And when you change the position of a deceased individual, if there's air trapped anywhere in the body, sometimes it will come out of the mouth, sometimes it will come from other orifices in the body, and they make sounds. That's not science fiction, that's real science, and it's true. How often does this happen? It doesn't happen with every case. However, it has the potential to happen with anyone. Your next question is it true that all deceased have diapers on inside the casket to contain any fluids? A lot of times we do put on what we refer to as protective garments on the deceased, especially if they're a demoness or if they are expelling or purging fluids from their anus, their vagina, or other parts of the body where we've had to make incisions for embalming or aspiration. It really depends on the embalmer's observation of what the body needs. Would it be wise to put protective garments on everyone to avoid purge and damaging the clothing or inside of the casket? Definitely. However, everyone does not require protective garments or diapers or things like that. I prefer to use the word protective garments instead of diapers because it can be insulting to individuals to think that we're going to put a diaper on you like you're a baby. But protective garments and underwear are used in the funeral home to protect against purge. You said that you saw a documentary on how fluids can cause a deceased male to have an erection and women to release fluids as well. That is true. The embalming process, we take the blood out of the system and we replace it with embalming fluids, and the distribution of those fluids in some cases does create an erection and does cause women to purge as well, sometimes from the vagina, the anus, the mouth, or other orifices of the body, your ears, your nose, your eyes, everywhere. It isn't limited to just the genitalia. Now, in situations where someone has an erection, that is not something that we're focused on. A lot of times, or all times, when a deceased comes in to the funeral home, into the embalming room, the first thing that we're going to do is try to protect their modesty and show as much respect to them as we can, and that's going to involve covering their body. Even though we do have to take their clothes off, we want to protect their modesty, and we're going to cover their genitalia and the women's breast during the embalming process just as a form of respect. We're not looking to create an erection. Purge is a natural function of the body, and because the deceased has no control of their bodily functions, it can and will happen in a lot of cases. Next question says, Well, what if a deceased is disfigured really badly? How do you let the family see the deceased, or is a closed casket required? In situations where the deceased is disfigured or has experienced a lot of facial trauma, we do what is called restorative art, which is intended to restore this deceased to as much of a natural appearance as possible. Embalming is required for this because we have to kind of clean everything up and do what we call setting features. Now, setting features is also done for individuals that aren't going to be embalmed and consist of cleaning the face and the body, closing the eyes, and closing the mouth in a way that is as lifelike or as natural as possible. When we do restorative art, that is a little bit deeper, and it's actually done after the embalming process, and it is intended to basically recreate a natural appearance of the deceased. A lot of times when someone has succumbed to a bullet wound or a car accident or some type of other accident where the appearance of the face has been disturbed traumatically, we use restorative waxes, we use training that we receive in mortuary school, cosmetics, and other accessories to help us rebuild a face to look as naturally and as close to the deceased did in life as we can. This does not always work, and there are times where we have to suggest to the family that a closed casket would be best. If a family member wants to see their deceased, even after we've explained this, at the funeral home where I work, we make them sign a legal document, a disclosure form, which informs them that we are suggesting that they do not view their loved one this way because it may cause them some type of psychological or mental trauma. If they choose to go through this process, we clean the deceased up as much as possible, restore as much as we can, and we allow the family, immediate family, or those who have signed the disclosure to view the deceased. Most of the time this is the next of kin or extremely close family members. We do not extend this to the general public because we do not feel as if it is in the best intent of the family or the deceased for them to be viewed in a way that could cause mental or emotional distress to that level. Seeing a loved one deceased is traumatic enough already and is emotional enough already. We as funeral professionals are not trying to traumatize anyone. And you said that you wouldn't want to pay for a funeral without seeing them. I can understand why you feel that way. However, when you pay for your funeral services, you are paying for the embalming and the restoration of the deceased if that is something that you've selected. However, you're also paying for the care of that deceased. So what you're paying for isn't limited to just your experience in viewing the deceased. Viewing the deceased is a big part of the funeral and memorialization process, and the final memory of seeing your loved one can be impactful. However, you're not strictly paying to see the deceased. So I don't want to mislead you by informing you that, oh, okay, well, if you don't like the way the deceased look, you don't have to pay. That's not how it works. You're paying for the services of the funeral professionals handling your loved one, and you're paying for the merchandise selected, not for whether or not you're pleased with the way the deceased looks, which is a big part of things. Not to discredit that. However, that's just not how it works. As funeral professionals, and especially as embalmers who specialize in restoration or restorative art or just embalming period, we're always trying to do our best to give the deceased back to their family in the best way possible. And sometimes that means not having a negative image to remember your loved one with. And when I say negative image, a lot of people feel like viewing the deceased and seeing a dead person or seeing your loved one dead is a bad thing anyway. However, that's not always the case. Some people need to see their deceased loved one for closure. Some people need it to make the reality of the loss real. And some people don't need to view the deceased at all. Some people don't want to be viewed at all, and they make that a part of their pre-arrangements, and that is completely fine. Whatever it is that you decide as the individual making your arrangements, or as the family making decisions at the time of need, that is completely up to you. But as professionals, it is our job to not only safeguard the family, but safeguard the community. And we do that through exercising our skill and our passion in the embalming room. If you're watching and you have questions that you'd like me to answer via video, you can leave them in the comment section below, or you can email them directly to thegravewoman@gmail.com. Live life, love hard, and I'll talk to you next time.